Have you ever wondered why my mother kept onion skins in an old rusted tin at the back of the drawer? Or why she rubbed a raw potato on the knife before cutting anything? One morning when I was still just a little girl, I woke up to the sharp smell of vinegar drifting through the whole house. It was a Sunday, cold enough to ache right through you, and my mother was down on her knees on the kitchen floor, scrubbing the stove with an old piece of newspaper soaked in that sour liquid. I thought it was strange. Today, at 65 years old, I know she was saving money we didn't have. Young people these days spend a fortune on chemical-packed cleaning products, imported sprays, gadgets that promise miracles and last 3 months. But the truth, the real truth, is kept right here, in this small, worn leather notebook, stained with grease and time, with yellowed pages and ink that's almost gone. It belonged to my mother, and before her, it belonged to Grandma Benedita. Today I am opening this notebook for you. I was born in a small town in West Virginia, the daughter of a man who worked the mines and a woman who turned nothing into supper. My mother's name was Dorothy. She was small, with rough hands and sharp eyes, and she knew how to stretch what couldn't be stretched. The winter of 1971 was one of the hardest I remember. My father had lost his job early that year, and the icebox was more empty than full for weeks at a time. I was 6 years old. I didn't fully understand what was happening, but I understood that my mother was waking earlier than ever, that she spent long hours in the kitchen, and that Grandma Benedita's notebook was always lying open on the table. That notebook was sacred. Grandma Benedita had written everything in it with a small, slanted hand, the recipes, the tricks, the secrets of someone who had survived scarcity without breaking. My mother followed those pages like a map through dangerous country, and it was that winter that I began to learn, without knowing I was learning, the secrets that would stay with me my whole life. The first trick I ever saw my mother use had to do with bacon grease. Back then, bacon was a rare thing, only appearing on special days. But when it did appear, my mother never, not once, threw the grease away. She melted it all into an old tin, strained it through a cloth, and kept it in the icebox. That grease was gold. She fried eggs in it, seasoned the pot of beans with it, spread it on bread that was going hard so it would soften up in the iron skillet. Something the young people today toss out without a second thought. My mother turned into 4, 5 meals. That winter, I watched her make bone broth for the first time. She had gotten some beef bones from the butcher, nearly free because they were the leftovers nobody wanted. She put everything into a big pot with cold water, a whole onion, garlic, bay leaves, and salt. She let it simmer on low for hours. The whole house filled with a smell that even today, when I close my eyes, makes me feel completely safe. From that broth she made soup, she made rice, she made gravy. 3 days of hot food from bones that had cost almost nothing. But my mother didn't only have kitchen tricks. She knew how to care for the whole house with what she had. The windows she cleaned with vinegar and newspaper, just like I said, and they shone brighter than with any bought product. The vinegar smell was gone in minutes, but the shine lasted days. The bathroom she scrubbed with baking soda mixed with a squeeze of lemon. The kitchen sink she polished with an orange peel. I watched her and thought it was all magic. Today I know it was science. It was wisdom. It was the way things had always been done before someone invented a factory to charge good money for what nature was already giving away free. There is something she did with used tea bags that I have never forgotten. After brewing her tea, she didn't throw the bag away. She kept it on a small saucer. When my sister had cried herself into swollen eyes, or when we woke up with puffy lids, she would take those already cooled bags and lay them over our eyes for 10 minutes. The swelling went down. She also used them to clean grease off the stovetop, wiping the damp bag across the surfaces. The tannins in the tea cut right through the grime without scratching a thing. The raw potato trick I learned early. When the soup had gotten too salty, my mother dropped a whole raw potato into the liquid and let it cook for about 20 minutes. The potato drew the excess salt right out. Then she pulled it out and set it aside. The soup was perfect. I tried explaining this to my granddaughter once. She looked at me like I was making things up. I just went ahead and showed her. Her jaw nearly hit the floor. And then there was the stale bread trick, which was just regular life in our house. Old bread was never garbage in my mother's kitchen. She would dampen it with a little water, wrap it in a damp cloth, and put it in the oven on low for 10 minutes. The bread came out soft as if it had just come from the bakery. What was left after that went into the broth, became bread pudding, became stuffing. Nothing, absolutely nothing was ever wasted. Every time I read these faded pages, I feel my mother Dorothy and Grandma Benedita standing right behind me. They didn't just write down recipes, they wrote down survival. They wrote down love dressed up as instruction. Young people today don't have this. Nobody sat down with them and said, "Hold on to this, you're going to need it someday." That's why I decided to do something special. I gathered all of Grandma Benedita's exact tricks, all the penny-saving recipes, all the secrets from this very notebook, and I left a digital copy for you, a little e-book right down there in the pinned comment. Go get it. Let her protect your family the way she protected mine. Now let me tell you what my mother did with the bacon grease that was left over from Sunday. The winter dragged on, and the meals my mother put together grew more and more inventive. From flour, lard, and water, she made a flat skillet bread we called necessity bread. From leftover rice from the day before, she made fried rice cakes that my sisters and I fought over like they were something expensive. From mashed cooked beans mixed with flour, she made a baked loaf that kept us full through the whole afternoon. She had a trick with milk that was starting to turn. Instead of throwing it out, she made cottage cheese or farmer's cheese, or used it in cake batter in place of fresh milk. The result was always fluffier, more moist. She said sour milk activated the baking powder in a way fresh milk just couldn't. Today, bakers pay good money for buttermilk for exactly that reason. My mother had it for free, every day. The egg that was close to its date became a thick omelet stuffed with whatever there was. A leftover bit of onion, a small piece of sharp cheddar, snips of parsley from the pot on the windowsill. She seasoned it with a drizzle of oil and a pinch of nutmeg, and that plain omelet tasted like something from a proper restaurant. The secret was patience. She never rushed the heat. She said good food doesn't hurry. The herbs she grew right on the kitchen windowsill. Parsley, chives, basil, mint. No industrial seasoning packets. No pre-made spice blends full of sodium and coloring. She plucked them on the spot, washed them, chopped them. The smell that stays on your fingers after chopping fresh parsley is one of the most vivid memories of my whole childhood. I still grow the same herbs today, in the same kind of clay pot she used. There is the lemon peel trick in the sugar. She slipped a well-washed peel right into the sugar jar. The sugar never clumped. The peel released just enough moisture to keep the crystals from locking together. Simple as that. Today I see special products sold for this very purpose in the grocery store. Grandma Benedita solved it with a peel that would have gone straight in the trash. Baking soda was the most versatile thing in the house. She dissolved a spoonful in warm water to wash fruits and vegetables. It pulled off pesticide residue far better than plain water. She used it to brighten teeth mixed with a little fine salt. She kept an open box in the icebox to absorb odors. She patted it under her arms as emergency deodorant. She dissolved it in hot water for gargling when her throat hurt. One little box cost almost nothing and lasted the whole month. My mother also knew how to care for clothing in a way that seems completely forgotten today. She never once bought fabric softener. She poured half a cup of plain white vinegar into the water for the final rinse. The clothes came out soft, with no trace of vinegar smell, and the colors held far longer than they do today with all those chemical products. She said the vinegar closed the fibers of the fabric, and that industrial softener did the opposite. It left the fibers open, ready to soak up more dirt. Stains she attacked immediately. Coarse salt on a fresh red wine stain drew nearly all of it out. Diluted hydrogen peroxide on yellow sweat stains. Gall soap on grease stains, left to work for a few minutes before washing. She never lost a single piece of clothing to a stain. She said a stain was like a lie. The longer you let it settle, the harder it is to get out. The vinegar she also used on hair. Once a week after washing, she rinsed with water and apple cider vinegar. The hair came out shining, no frizz, and the scalp stayed balanced. No expensive conditioner I have ever used in my life has given me the results that simple rinse gave. My mother had the most beautiful hair on the whole block right up until she was 70. Mayonnaise she used as a hair mask. She worked it from the mid-lengths through to the ends, wrapped the hair in plastic, and left it for half an hour. Then she washed it out normally. The ends stayed moisturized for weeks. She said the egg and oil in the mayonnaise did for hair what the expensive creams try to copy. I still do it today and my daughter gives me a look, right up until the day she tries it and becomes a true believer. The deep cold came, the hardest stretch of that winter, and my father still had no work. But not a single night did we go to bed hungry, because my mother knew how to turn a little into enough. She made what we called icebox soup, which was basically everything that was left in the refrigerator and the pantry thrown into a pot with hot water and seasoning. It never came out the same twice. It always came out good. The sandwich bread going stale she cut into cubes and toasted in the skillet with a drizzle of oil and garlic. Dropped on top of the soup, it made the whole thing a full meal. The butter that was getting old and strong tasting, she mixed with fresh herbs and salt, pressed it into wax paper and froze it. It became a special condiment she used to flavor meat and vegetables for weeks. All the organic scraps went onto the compost pile behind the house. The vegetable peels, the stems, the outer leaves of the lettuce. With that compost she fed the herbs on the windowsill and the few plants in the yard. Nothing left the house without serving a purpose first. When the cold finally broke and my father went back to work, we had not lost our dignity. We had eaten well, kept ourselves clean, done the laundry, kept the house decent. All because of my mother's hands and her head, and the teachings of Grandma Benedita, written down in that notebook I still carry with me today. Today I am 65 years old and a grandmother myself. When I watch the young people around me buying everything disposable, throwing food away, believing expensive is the same as good, I feel a mixture of sadness and responsibility. Because I know what they do not know. I carry what they have lost. My mother, Dorothy, passed away 11 years ago. But every time I pick up that notebook, every time I dissolve baking soda in the kitchen sink or save the bacon grease in a little tin, she is here. Grandma Benedita, who I barely knew, is here. They are still feeding me, still teaching me, still protecting me from the waste and ignorance that the modern world tries to sell us as progress. These tricks are not old curiosities. They are living wisdom. They are the difference between getting through the month with your dignity or going into debt for things you never needed. They are the result of generations of smart women who had no option but to waste nothing, and who, because of that, Learn to see value where the world saw trash. Hold on to these lessons. Pass them forward. Do not let this wisdom die with my generation. Because one day, whether it is in a crisis, a hard end of the month, or an unexpected rough patch, you are going to open that cupboard and need to know what my mother knew. And when that day comes, I want you to be ready, the way I was ready, the way she made me ready. There was also the eggshell trick that I watched my mother do without ever wasting a single shell. She dried them in the low oven, crushed them in a cloth bag until they were a fine powder, and used that powder to feed the plants on the windowsill. The geraniums she kept by the kitchen window were the most beautiful on the whole block, and the secret was always the calcium in those shells that the neighbors threw straight into the trash. She would smile quietly with her eyes whenever someone admired those flowers, because she knew the secret was in the scraps. My mother also had a method for keeping brown sugar from hardening that I use to this day. She placed a piece of dry bread or a terracotta disc inside the bag. The bread absorbed just enough moisture to keep the sugar soft and workable for weeks. When the bread dried out completely, she replaced it. Simple, free, and far more reliable than any of the plastic gadgets sold in the cooking stores today that do the exact same thing for $5. The cast iron skillet she treated like a living thing. Never soap, only hot water and a stiff brush, dried immediately on the warm burner, then wiped with a thin layer of lard or bacon grease while still warm. That skillet was used every single day of her life, and when she gave it to me before she died, it was as smooth and black as glass. I cook in it every week. It will outlive me. It will outlive my daughter. That is what it means to buy something once and care for it properly, instead of throwing it out and buying new every 3 years.